Hi, I'm Lonnie,
And I'm Tracy with One Blessed Step.
and we're here to talk to you about the 7 essentials that you need to have an offsite camp.
Yeah, so if you want to purchase your own land and
Yep.
camp on your own land, these are just some of the things we think you might want to have.
Yeah, so I'm going to start with access to your property.
That's a big one.
How do you get to it?
Yes.
It can be really complicated because you need to make sure you have an easement. Not everything has a road right up to the property. So
No, a lot of things, especially rural land,
Yeah.
and especially if it's super cheap,
Yes,
may not have
that's
access.
why it might be landlocked.
But you can't sail to Nineveh. It's landlocked. See?
And there
Yes.
maybe you have to figure out a way to get access to it. So
And
it's really important.
landlocked means
Means that there's not really an easement to it. And you're
drive,
surrounded.
road.
Right. They don't set up all these lots that there's a dedicated easement or roadway path to your property, so you don't necessarily have frontage. And so it relies on you getting an easement from your property across someone else's property until you get to a road.
And easement is
An easement is a
permission.
permission, more or less. Yeah, it's a legal document that says that you can cross their property for these reasons.
Right.
Yeah.
So the first thing Lonnie is trying to share with you is that you need to have access to your property.
Right.
The next thing is you have to actually have access in your property.
Yep, you've got to it.
Yes.
Now what?
Yes.
We've been there. This was like, if
Yes.
you remember the Williams one. This
Yes.
one is really
So
kinda-
we had 40 acres in Williams, and part of that was an easement to the road.
There was a nice road right up
road
to, it. Oh,
to
yeah.
the property,
They
but when
did a
you
great
got to
job.
the property, there was like this mound of dirt
Right,
that they
and
had
rocks.
used to
Right.
plow the
Oh, yeah.
the road.
They're keeping the drainage on the road.
And we had brought our RV, and we couldn't get in. We didn't.
It wasn't four-wheel drive. It
Yeah.
didn't have a big old blade in the front of it. It's not that
Right.
type of RV. So
Right, and at the time back in the day,
yeah,
there wasn't a lot of traffic on that road, and we were only there for like a day, so
Right.
we just kind of
you camped on
camped
the road.
on the road. But eventually,
Yep.
you got a shovel
Right,
and you made yourself a little road.
right. And we got out there far enough. So,
Right. So you have to have access in your property as well.
Yes. So number 3 is, well, once you're on your property, where are you gonna camp at?
We had the most beautiful location
Oh yeah, we were all
on
set.
that property.
Yeah,
We had
laid it out with
views
stuff.
of like
Oh,
the canyon,
yep,
and there was like
mountains in the distance.
yes, it was
Oh,
just gorgeous.
It's great.
Yes.
So you want to find a good spot, and so there's a lot of things that kind of go into that. It's like you also, like what's the best view, like you're
Yes.
talking about. You just hit the view. You don't want to necessarily be, if you do have a road next to you, you don't want to necessarily be right up on the road.
You also want to be level on the road. Make
Yes.
sure you find, because you don't want to be, if you're tent camping or if you're van life in it or RV
Yep.
in it or building a shed, right? You don't want to be off
Yeah,
like this.
you want your site to be,
Pretty level.
easily used, and you don't want to be like right where all the rain captures on your whole lot.
Right.
Don't set up right there.
Yeah.
That's not a good idea, because then
Don't-
you got mud everywhere.
Exactly. And even distance from the road. You might
Yeah.
want to be far from the road,
Right.
especially if it's super dirty. We lived right against the forest one time. We loved this location. This was
yeah.
going to be our retirement
Yeah.
home.
Beautiful
Another
home.
story later.
Yeah,
If you want to
totally.
hear why we
Yep.
sold that one,
Oh, yeah.
put a number
Number
one
one.
in the comments, and we'll come
That's a
back.
story, yeah.
We'll come back and tell you why we sold our retirement home. Anyways, cars used to go back and forth on that road. It would drive us so crazy, and there would always be dust everywhere and in the house.
So yeah, it felt good. We backed the forest, but the problem was there was a dirt road on the forest.
on the forest, not too
And
far from us.
Not too far.
And it was pretty dusty. So, make sure you're away from the road too if you
Right.
can.
And then as far as orientation on shade, like if you're set up, to kind of look at where the sun travels. You want a good shady spot to sit if you want to sit outside.
Right. And if you like your neighbors, you might want to live right next to them.
Oh yeah,
If you want some privacy, you might want to be far away.
so true.
Right. Also, if you have any kind of utilities on your property, which would be amazing.
Oh,
we
that's a
have
blessing.
purchased land that had utilities on them. Wonderful thing.
Oh yeah.
This land doesn't have it.
Nope, it does not.
But if you do have utilities, you want to be within a reasonable distance to those utilities because
Yeah.
you don't want to have to run more utilities. That's thousands of dollars out of your
super
pocket.
expensive.
So know where your utilities are. That might be a clue as to where you should set up camp.
Totally.
The next thing is your source of power.
Yes.
So true off-gridding means you don't connect to
to public
services.
utility, yeah, something running
Right.
to you. That's not it. You're on grid. You're on grid, not
So
off grid.
if you're watching this from home,
Yep.
you're on grid.
You're on grid, yeah.
If you're watching this from your van,
Yep.
boondocking, you're off grid,
You're off
right? So off grid meaning you don't connect to any services. You don't
Right.
have power, you don't have water, you don't have sewage, you don't have, sometimes you don't even have trash pickup. Most
Yep.
of the time you don't
Most
have
of the
trash pickup. We actually could get trash pickup, which
Yep.
is
It's fascinating.
yeah, it's just
it's-
cheaper for us to do it ourselves.
Yep.
But anyways, make sure that you have a source of power. So a source of power could be something like solar. There are plenty of panels.
Yeah.
Again, we when we're mobile, we have all kinds of mobile setup. But
Oh, yeah.
you can have, your solar panels. You can have
A generator.
A generator. You can do wind if you want
Oh,
to.
yeah.
You can do one of those power banks. You have to decide what it is that you need, propane, gas, things like that. You have to decide what it is that you need. So
Yeah.
as you're thinking about going camping at your location, try to figure out how do you want to cook, right?
Yeah.
If you're going to cook, you might need propane.
Yeah, what are your requirements?
Right.
What do you want to run? I mean, we have a Starlink, so we've got to
Yes.
know what that's required.
That is a power hog. So
It's
you have to have
amazing. Yeah,
you have
It's
to have
constantly drawing
a
power.
generator or a power bank
Yeah.
for that, or one of those big batteries.
Yep, and maybe
that.
you have a generator, and you're going to have batteries too, because, or you're going to have to listen to your generator and all, and that takes gas.
And some communities tell you you can't run your generator past 10 p.m.
Right.
So don't run your generator past 10 p.m. Be courteous to the people that are sleeping around. You might want to get a battery.
Yeah.
And maybe you need your battery to run your CPAP machine, right? So think about the type of things you're going to be doing and what kind of power you're going to need. And if you don't know, a good thing to do would be while you're at home to think about all the devices that you might be bringing, your cooktop, your, internet, your computer, your phone, whatever,
Right.
and then try to run them off of, the power that you have.
There's pretty neat gizmos too, where you can just plug it into while you're at home on grid. You can plug it into the wall, and plug your device into it, and it'll tell you how many watts is running.
Right.
And so then that kind of gives you a basis on what you need.
So if you know you need 100 watts,
Yep.
how do you know what you're supposed to bring?
Well, and then you have so everything on storage is about how many watts and how long. So it's stored as kind of like watt hours is
Okay.
what you're stored.
So if you need 100 watts
Right.
and you need it for 10 hours,
Right.
what do you need?
That's 1,000 watt hours.
Okay, so you need something,
Yep.
a battery or a generator
Yep.
that can run 1,000 watt hours. Now, with your generator, you're going to probably bring gas,
Yep.
right? Extra gas to run it.
Or propane.
Or
Some of them
propane.
run on propane.
Okay. If you have solar, you're going to need your solar panels,
Yep.
right? Your solar panels will charge your battery.
Yep.
Right. So just kind of do your research in that space. And if you need additional help with that, let us know in the comments. We can go through.
Yeah,
Lonnie's
I
happy
can
to
certainly
do.
walk through that. So
He's
yeah,
learned more
yep.
about solar than anybody I know. I'm surprised he's even let me talk about this subject.
Oh, yeah. Well, because it's neat being off grid. You kind of it's part of the challenge. We talk about in other videos how we like to challenge ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
and this is one of them. Is like, how do we balance? All of a sudden, you got like 3 cloudy days coming in, or the afternoons are
Mm-hmm. goodness.
always cloudy. Well, solar's just not going to quite put out as much if there's
Right.
clouds in the sky.
Yeah,
So,
and that's another reason why we loved knowing where we're going to camp and having
Right.
your own camping space. Because once you start visiting there,
Yeah.
you start to get a feel for the weather. We know that in the afternoons the wind and clouds are coming.
Right.
So we can't cook on solar in the afternoon. So if we have something to cook, we're going to cook it in the morning.
Right.
We'll eat an early dinner. We'll snack in the afternoon.
Right.
Not make a dinner.
or a big power draw. Like if you've got we like cook rice or something like that. You got to cook something in a microwave or such. You do all those big power draws when in the morning, and then when the sun's still hitting your panels, so you can charge your batteries back up.
Right. And just because you're off grid doesn't mean you can't have the convenience
No.
of a refrigerator, of a microwave,
Right.
of a rice cooker.
Yep.
Right. We can have all of these wonderful things when you're off grid. You just have to make sure you have the right amount of power.
Right. So number 5 is water. So you got to have water.
Yes.
It's like more important than food. I think you can survive not eating food as much, but you need water.
I have done a 3-day water fast.
Yep.
Don't need food for that.
So how are you going to, so you're coming up on your property with your RV or such, and you're going to have water that you're bringing with you.
Yeah.
And so that's that's going to be the water that you're going to start with. If you plan to be here for a longer time, well, you're going to have to start figuring out how you're going to get more water.
Right.
So up here, we like to just we have some extra storage of water that we are able to utilize, and we have someone bring the water out to us. There's local entrepreneurs running around bringing water to us, and we are now set for extra water.
Yeah, there's a huge benefit to actually owning your own campsite, because then you can put up water tanks, as long as it's okay with your zoning, right? I always have to tell you, make sure it's okay with your zoning. But you can put up, a big old water thing, or you can go into town and buy a bunch of 5-gallon water containers and store them in your shed or whatever, right? That's one of the wonderful things about owning your own campsite, so that you don't always have to pack everything in.
Yep. And you could, if you have a shed or a structure on there, well, you could also capture some of the rain off that and store it.
Yes.
Understanding that water still needs to be filtered and treated or whatever, but you could use it for other things that aren't consumable, and then use your other water that you brought with you, or your potable water, for the consumption.
Yeah, rain catchment is difficult in a place where you're not there all the time. There's a lot of off-grid channels that do a lot of rain catchment, and they have nice filtering capabilities. I wouldn't recommend it for something if you're just camping like we do on occasion. Don't, if you're not going to live here, right? But if you're all going to live here, then maybe rain catchment is a good idea. But I don't know.
I would agree with you. I mean, we don't do it because of that, because we're just not here enough to monitor it and treat it and stuff. So.
Yeah, we just like to randomly camp. It's here when we want it, and when we don't, we usually just pack it in, or we get it delivered. But if you do want a rain catchment, it's totally fine. A lot of people do it as well. Lonnie's just suggesting you just be careful, because you never know what's been crawling on that roof, and you don't want to be drinking whatever is in those pipes.
Nope.
All right. The next thing is your waste. So you have things like poop. Right? And where we live, if you're in your van, and we've done this before, as we will use our van to be camping. You'll see that on videos.
Oh, yeah.
Stay tuned, subscribe. Right?
Van stuff coming.
Van life coming up. But we'll go to the local gas station who has a free dump. We like to find the free dumps. If we don't find the free dumps, we will pay. We have paid many times to dump, but we will dump what's called our black tank. So if you're new to RVing, you'll have a gray tank, which is just like your sink water,
shower water.
And then you'll have a black tank, which is your pee-pee and your poo-poo. So we always say whenever we're camping, we pack in, we pack out.
Right.
So we will take our van, and then we will dump it in the dump.
Right.
At a local
and on top of that,
station.
occasionally we will stop in at a campground, maybe grab a shower, extra shower, or fill up.
It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
When we're on the road, when we're doing stop and go, a lot of times we'll do a lot of boondocking, but when our tanks start to get full, we'll go buy a spot. Right, for a day. And then we'll be able to fill our tanks and dump our tanks and do all the fun and
dump
shower.
the ones we don't want, fill up the ones we do.
Exactly.
Get clean.
Right. Some people who live off-grid, and actually some people who also don't live off-grid, will do things like composting their waste. So they will have systems that are approved. If you have a campsite, you need a system that's approved by your county in order to compost your waste.
Right.
So that's why we pack out. Another waste option, waste thing that you have to deal with is your garbage. Right? Actually, where we are, there is garbage pickup if you want to pay for it. We actually find it to be a lot cheaper to go to the dump ourselves or the refuge station. It's really a lot cheaper for us to do that, and so we will pack out our trash.
I think it's more convenient.
Right.
So number 7 is security. So some off-grid places and that you're camping are kind of out in the middle of nowhere, and so you always want to be considering, like, how secure are we out here? What do I need to do in order to sleep at night, or not be concerned about people coming up onto your place?
Yeah, especially if you're out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. So the biggest thing for us is fencing, and so that is what we believe is one of the and certainly here is one of the first things that we did.
Yeah, I mean,
we put some fencing up.
Day one we got here, someone else's dogs
running around.
running around on our property, coming up to us. We didn't know if they were friendly or not. They
Yep.
were friendly,
Yep.
but we didn't know if they were
No.
friendly or not. So, we just really think fencing is important if you have your own campsite. But, again, that's totally up
Yeah.
to you.
I mean, there's a cost associated with
Right.
it, but
And there's
it's-
other ways to secure yourself that you can just use your creative imagination on.
yeah. So we hope that this has helped you kind of walk through what we've done here and what we feel is kind of the essentials that you need in order to make this all work.
Yeah, and these are just the essentials that you need for the campsite.
Yeah.
And don't forget, you're going to need clothes. You're going to need,
your
food.
stuff.
You're going to need to, figure out how to do laundry if you
Right.
haven't, if you need to do laundry, or you just pack that back home when you're done camping. So
Yeah.
we hope you enjoyed this. And if you did, give it a thumbs up, and we will see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.